Imagine that you find the perfect job posting. You spend 30 minutes researching the company. You spend another hour tailoring your resume, rewriting your cover letter so it matches that job specifically. You include all of your specific keywords from the job description so you're prepared to pass the ATS, and you press apply. And then absolute radio silence, not even an automated rejection email. It's like you just entered that application into a void. Has this ever happened to you? The natural reaction in this situation is to wonder, did I do something wrong? Is there something I could have done better? Did you lack a specific skill? Was your resume not formatted correctly? But the investigative question that we're going to be asking tonight is a little bit different. We're asking how much of the problem is actually us as the candidate or our effective application versus how much is the profound uncertainty of the job posting itself. The modern job search forces you to treat every single apply now button as if it represents an actively managed hiring process. But the public job boards often give you an incomplete, outdated, or sometimes just completely misleading information about a job's freshness, its timeline, or even the employer's actual intent to hire right now. So we're not here tonight to expose, a massive corporate conspiracy. We're here to navigate a systemic information gap. So by the end of this episode, you will have a practical verification system that helps you decide which job postings deserve 2 hours of your effort and which ones deserve 2 minutes of scrutiny first. Because before you spend 2 hours applying, you should spend 2 minutes verifying if that job is worth your time. So welcome back to the Vitality Social Network. My name is Melon. I have really enjoyed hosting this series on how we can set you up for success in your future career. So let's get into it. Now, before we can navigate what the problem is, we need a practical framework for what we're actually looking at. What is a ghost job, right? A ghost job is an umbrella term that people use for several different things that can look identical on a job board, but happen for completely different reasons. So some are intentionally maintained, some are delayed, and some just become stale because the hiring process and the technology don't stay synchronized. So the first pattern that we see of our 4 common patterns is the company is not actually posting because they have an open funded seat that they're trying to fill on Monday morning. They're posting because they want to build a talent pool. They have this job out always on an ongoing basis so that they have a list of qualified candidates ready to contact the moment someone quits or a new project launches. So this is something that I'm familiar with in my company. We are always looking for talented individuals, and we always want to have those conversations where we're meeting people, because the minute somebody decides to quit without notice or we grow as a company and there's a new need, I want to have that person ready and identified, able to plug in right away. So we often recognize those posts by their language. We're always looking for talented people, or strong candidates will be contacted as opportunities arise. So that's not a hiring requisition. That is a net, right? So it's a wide net that's being cast, and the pool of people that we're hoping to keep filling up on an ongoing basis, so we're ready when we need it. Now, next is hi Ruby. Thank you. Good to see you. Next is the compliance post. This pattern is more administrative. So federal contractors in the United States, for example, have external posting obligations under OFCCP regulations. Many companies also use external postings to demonstrate compliance with internal equal opportunity requirements. So what does that actually mean in practice? A posting might just be going up to externally satisfy a requirement, even if an internal candidate has already been strongly identified for a role. So the company is just following the rules, but you're kind of at a structural disadvantage from the start. So one example that I know from this is for FedEx. I know a lot of people that work for FedEx, and they say that sometimes the only jobs that you're actually going to find in FedEx are being hired as a package handler. So if you search on Indeed for FedEx jobs, I'll actually show you really quick so you can see. Pretty much the only jobs that you're going to find available are for package handlers part-time, maybe one or two other positions, right? But you're not finding a large variety of manager positions, for example, or other administrative roles. And that is because they tend to promote from within. So they're going to hire you as a package handler, and then if you demonstrate strong performance, then you'll be able to be first in line for those additional opportunities. And so the minute one of those job postings become available, they're going to identify who they want from within their company. And then at that point, they already kind of know who they're going to hire, right? But then they have to post the job posting just to meet the requirements, just to give outsiders that little bit of opportunity and hope. But truly, it's probably something that you're already at a disadvantage for. You'd be better off just getting your foot in the door and growing from there. The next pattern we see is the stale relic. So this job was real at some point, but then something happened, like the budget got cut, the manager who needed that hire left, or the role was filled internally, like we just discussed, and then nobody deleted that public post. So an internal ATS might have closed the requisition, but the job board technology kept it alive. And this morning you saw it as listed 2 days ago, but that label doesn't actually always mean that the role was truly created 2 days ago. So job board freshness labels can reflect a recent syndication, a refresh, or an automated repost. The role might have stopped being active months ago. So sometimes it can be a little bit misleading. And like we're talking about, the whole concept of these ghost job patterns is that just because we see an active job listing doesn't mean that it's actively being managed by a hiring director who's looking to fill that role tomorrow. And then another common pattern we see is the employer signaling post. So some employers will keep postings open not because they're trying to fill an immediate role, but actually they're trying to send a signal to the market or even to their team. So a stack of job listings send a signal of momentum. It suggests to investors or competitors that the company is growing and healthy. And on many platforms, sending that signal is essentially free. So it's a great way of showing those people that we are growing as a company. So I would love to know from you, which of these 4 patterns do you suspect that you have bumped into the most on your job search? Because I'm sure that we have all encountered one or the other. We realize that they were only ever intending to hire from within in the first place, or it is just an outdated, stale post, or it's one of those posts where they're just always hiring, even if there's no real sense of urgency to get somebody filled in that role today. Which one of these have you ran into in your job search? Now, I do want to consider assuming every confusing job posting is an intentional trap does ignore how the mechanics of hiring have actually changed. So there are some things that we need to consider. First is the cost of screening. So 10 years ago, if a company posted a job and got 5,000 applications, it needed a real human team to sit down and sort through every single one of them, and that would cost serious money and time. But in 2026, AI screening tools do that initial sorting in seconds. So when the administrative cost of managing a high volume inbox drops effectively to zero, the operational urgency to close a posting disappears. So it's not really hurting anybody to leave that job posting active and up, even if someone is not monitoring it or they're not essentially trying to fill that role right away. Next, another factor would be gathering market data. So, according to a self reported industry survey of hiring managers, a portion of employers acknowledge using job postings to gather information about candidate salary expectations. So, they are trying to gather information on what potential candidates are looking for. What do they find to be a competitive or an expected compensation? So then they can build a more accurate picture of what the market will actually accept for future hires. And then lastly, this one's a little bit provocative, but we need to look at what the surveys tell us. In another industry poll, the majority of HR professionals who responded acknowledged that hiring managers sometimes keep job postings open just to make their current overworked employees feel like help is on the way, or even to make them feel replaceable. And I have to be honest, again, as a hiring manager, this is a tactic that my employers and supervisors have wanted us to implement. So we are busy. We're at a place where we need multiple practitioners to provide care to our patients. And we want the team to keep working hard, but to feel like help is on the way. So we get a job posted. Now, truly, we are hoping to find somebody and to fill that role, but it's a hard role to fill, and that might not happen tomorrow. It might take 3 to 6 months down the line. So we do want them to at least see that we're making that effort and intention towards bringing them some help. Additionally, if we feel like one of those practitioners has been inconsistent or uncoachable, and we've been working with them over time and they're just not taking our feedback, not growing to the level we need, we might have a conversation that sounds like, look, we're going to have to start looking for some candidates that are able to follow the schedule that we need, or are able to complete the requirements and follow the policies and expectations that we're asking for. And if we find somebody that's willing to come on board and do those things, we might have to reevaluate your position or your schedule. And sometimes that encourages people to step up a little bit, work a little bit harder, try a little bit harder, show up a little bit more consistently. So it is important to consider that sometimes those factors are at play when a hiring manager is posting a job ad. Um, it's a little bit intentional, and sometimes those intentions we don't always expect from the employee perspective. And we can't state as a universal fact that hiring managers everywhere do this. Many of them might not, but the fact is that any significant portion would admit to it in a survey, and that tells us that job postings are sometimes used as internal management tools, not just external hiring tools. So, have you ever applied for a job and you didn't even receive an automated rejection email? You never heard back? Like I said, it just felt like your application went to an abyss. Did this ever happen to you? I'll at least let you know, I'll ease your tension and anxiety that this happens to a lot of people. I would be willing to bet that the response is overwhelmingly yes. And a rejection at least confirms that your application was processed, but total silence is the information gap that we're fighting right now. So here's what we're about to do. We're going to take a real public posting that looks completely normal, and we will pull it apart live, piece by piece, not to prove its intent, but to demonstrate rationales, triage. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, Ruby, but that definitely has happened to me with many, many jobs as well, where I spend all this time trying to fix up my resume and my cover letter and getting excited, and then I get no response, not even to know if it was seen or processed or rejected, or let alone why it was rejected, right? So that's certainly a conversation we could have in the future potentially about what are the next steps of the application process. Maybe how do we follow up? How do we try to touch base and get more information? But today we are focused on making sure that the jobs we're spending time applying to are worth our time and effort, because there are some telltale signs we can look for that will let us know if the job is, fresh and valid, right? So some of these things that we're talking about are our key indicators to let us know if it's even worth spending, 2 hours applying. That 2 minutes can save us a lot of time. Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that over time it's getting better for you. So even hopefully some of the strategies that we've been talking about on our previous calls about how we can have a more effective job application, hopefully that's getting some of you a little bit more success in hearing back from those potential employers. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again where we can see a specific job posting. And this was something I think is a little interesting. But maybe before we actually investigate, I just want to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking for. So let's go back to my slides here. So this can give you a quick idea, the autopsy of a job posting. What is it that we're going to be looking for? So first is the source. That's our first signal. Does this job posting exist on their own career site? So we often see on Indeed or LinkedIn the jobs that we're planning to apply to. Is it listed there and elsewhere? We're going to be looking for the freshness. So can we establish how old the role really is independently of the job board date? We're going to look for some of that specificity. So does it post, does the post contain concrete role specific information, responsibilities, things like that? We also, as we talked about before, we want it to seem like they're hiring actively right away. Yeah, they're not just always hiring qualified candidates, so to speak. There's a few other things we can look for too. So consistency. So when it comes to having the job listed in both places, that it's appearing meaningfully with the same job title, company name, information, etc. Same with the timestamp. And we're also looking for any human activity and then the business context. So I'm going to go ahead and share a search that I did recently. Switch over my screen here. I would love to hear in the comments while I'm getting this pulled up what kind of jobs you all have been looking for recently. I think it's always interesting to hear about challenges, your personal goals, what you need help with, what you're struggling with. So here's a job that I was searching for, Stretch Zone. So this is a practitioner assisted stretching company, therapeutic stretching. They work on you hands-on. And I just searched Stretch Zone job, and it automatically popped up results in the Winston-Salem area. And if I click this first one, right away, here's some things that stand out to me. Okay, I'm looking, and it says, okay, I can apply on ZipRecruiter, I can apply on all these other websites, but none of them say that I can apply on the company page. Additionally, as I search through all of this information, I'm not able to find I see that the recruiter is responsive, so we do have human activity. That's a good sign. That's probably a green flag if we're rating things red, yellow, green. But I'm not able to find when this job was actually posted. So I'm not sure if, again, this is something where they're just building that evergreen pool of potential applicants, or if they actually need somebody to fill this role tomorrow. And then I went ahead and took the time to dig a little bit deeper. So I clicked on apply on ZipRecruiter as one of my options to apply to this job. So we would see what we find. And it looks like this job specifically was reposted 16 days ago. So that's an important flag for you right there. Reposted, not just posted, okay? So this does probably signal that there's some automation happening with their hiring tools, and that on an ongoing basis, it's going to update it, because a lot of job listings actually expire after 30 days, especially when you use tools like Indeed and that kind of thing. So there's a good chance that the original job posting expired and then they had to repost it. Now, then I went over to the actual Stretch Zone website. So I'm going to share what I see here, if it will stick. Bear with me. Whoops. So let's see here. So my goal was to search in the same area for a job posting on stretchzone.com. To share with you, I will, but I guess it seems like it's maybe not going to work. So I'll go ahead and cut to the chase, which is that I wasn't able to find that specific job on the Stretch Zone website. Actually, I was able to find that position for other cities, but not specifically for the one that was listed for my area. So it seems like the job listing that I found was part of some sort of automated reposting process. So it wasn't actually that they're seeking somebody for that location today. Now, that is an example of why taking the 2 minutes to just verify some of these factors is worth our time, because otherwise I would have pressed apply on ZipRecruiter because it was the first button that was available to me. And then I would have taken the time to update my resume and my cover letter and get everything nice and specific to this job. And then I would have applied. And then I would have been like waiting to figure out, if they're going to respond to me. And, by that point in time, I could have already applied to another job that was actively hiring and called me back and been hired before I even realized that this job is not even looking for somebody to fill the role right now. So we want to make sure that our time is effectively spent, okay? There are some ways that we can actually use AI to help us with that as well, but I just want to reset a little bit, okay? So let's bring things back to the data and how we can actually effectively evaluate the evidence here that we have available. So let's talk about a statistic that you've probably heard floating around online, which is that 47% of job seekers have encountered a ghost job. I want to break down exactly what that survey measured, because what people think it means and what it actually means are two totally different things. And that 47% comes from a survey by a resume building platform. They asked a self-selected group of job seekers if they felt they had applied to a ghost job. Okay, so feeling like I applied to a ghost job versus knowing for sure. The limitation is that the survey relies on respondents' identification of what they consider to be a ghost job, which is very different from independently verifying the employer's hiring intent and knowing the truth behind that job, right? So if a recruiter never followed up, or the company hired an internal candidate and forgot to close the job posting, that feels like a ghost job to the applicant. This statistic tells us something meaningful about candidate frustration and perceived job market opacity, but it does not establish that 47% of postings are objectively fake, right? So what do the more rigorous data-based analysis show? One academic study used language models to analyze actual posting data on Glassdoor and estimated that about 21% of postings in that data set showed strong ghost jobs signals. So that's 21% compared to the 47% that is potentially estimated by those job seekers. And an internal platform data from Enterprise ATS providers puts their own estimate between 18 and 22%. So that's a little bit of a self-reflection and figuring out maybe that's a little bit more accurate data, right? If they're self-reflecting and providing that information to potential job seekers. So these findings indicate the problem may be substantial, but they don't establish a universal national rate necessarily. Some database studies and platform analysis have produced estimates in the high teens to mid 20s, but these are dataset specific estimates and not an authoritative national prevalence rate. So there's no definitive national figure. But even at 20%, 1 in 5 postings, the problem is real enough to justify how you go about applying. So now that you have a little bit of an idea of what you can actually look for when you're trying to seek if a job is a ghost job or a fake job or an outdated job, how confident do you feel right now that you can triage a job's posting signals before you apply? You feel like you have the skill set to determine if it's worth taking the time to apply to that job or not. Maybe you can rank yourself from, 1 to 5. 5 being like, I'm super confident. I will absolutely be able to tell if that is a fake ghost job. 0 is like, no, I was not even listening or paying attention to this conversation. So let me know where you're at. But if you're still ranking a little bit lowly, like maybe, okay, you heard this information, but you're still not totally confident on how to apply it, then the next segment is absolutely for you. This is how we're going to figure out how we can incorporate AI into our process so that we don't have to manually go through the signal checking process every time. We can use AI, but we're going to make sure that we do it correctly. We want to build an evidence analysis assistant, not just a ghost job detector. So again, it cannot read the employer's intent, but it can look for a lot of those cues. Okay, so I actually wanted to do something a little bit interesting and provide the prompt to ChatGPT and also provided the exact same job listing that we looked at ourselves to see how capable ChatGPT is of determining if it is a ghost job, because I think we already kind of figured out that it was, right, based on what we did here. So we're going to ask ChatGPT a couple of things. Let me just better share my screen so you can see all that information. Here you go. So act as a job posting evidence analysis assistant. Analyze only observable evidence and clearly separate facts from inference. Evaluate these 6 categories. So we put in those key points there: the source, freshness, specificity, consistency, human activity, all of those things that we're looking for. We did fill it into ChatGPT, so it's looking for the same things we are. Once we do this one good time, then we can easily do this much more quickly on an ongoing basis. All we have to do is update the link that we're sharing. And we do ask it for each category to list observable facts, label it green, yellow, red, explain it, and then provide overall effort priority. Is this job worth my time? That's the question. And provide me a brief explanation on why. So I went ahead and posted the job listing from ZipRecruiter, and I'm going to go ahead and send that prompt over, and then we'll see what it's able to do. I also want to let you know that ChatGPT has a new feature called work mode available. So it's able to think a little bit more deeply when it provides you an answer. Instead of giving you a quick automated answer, it's able to search online and sift through different links. It's also able to create spreadsheets and documents and all this other kind of cool stuff. So I just realized now that I actually had work mode on, so it's taken another minute for me to complete that. But the good news is I actually already did this earlier too, so I'm able to skip over. This one worked for 38 seconds, and oh my gosh, look, it is very thorough, and it says clearly for each one. The source is yellow, so it ranks it green, red, yellow. Gives me observable facts, explains why. And again, a direct employer hosted application page or confirmation from that specific studio is missing. Okay, so it was able to identify the same thing we were by actually having to go through and search for it ourselves. So that saved a moment of time. Same thing for the freshness, saying it was reposted 16 days ago, the issues with that. Specificity was great. So this provides us a lot of information about the actual job. So we know what we're getting into when we apply for this job. It's not going to be a surprise. It's very clear on what it requires for training and hours and pay and responsibilities and all that kind of stuff. And then, it continues for every single category like this. It also provides some specific information about that studio. So we have a phone number and we have an email that we can actually follow up with. So this actually ranked this one as overall effort priority as high. And I was a little bit surprised by that. So I think it might be worth coaching your AI a little bit on what you determine high, medium, or low. But the best next step made a lot of sense to me. So they're saying this person looks like they're always seeking qualified applicants, that they're consistently trying to grow their business. And if you're a good fit for it, they might reach out to you, but maybe they're not, in desperate need of someone to fill a seat tomorrow. But what you can certainly do is apply and then call them directly and say, I found your job listing. Is that specific listing currently open? And who is the best person to address my application to? So then, if you're really interested in this job, but before you actually spend the time applying, you can just make a quick phone call, a quick touch base, and actually seek out if they're currently hiring and if it's worth spending that time on. Let's go back to this page because I asked it, next time you do this for me, could you be a little bit more concise so that I can quickly scan and see what we determined? And so this time it gave me overall effort priority medium. And the reason is because the specific opening is not confirmed on the official careers site. And again, we should reach out to determine if they're currently interviewing for that role. So ChatGPT was able to learn through me having this conversation and telling it what I'm looking for and providing these prompts, able to provide better information to me over time. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and we were able to do that real world test. So this is something that you can certainly do as you're looking at jobs and deciding which ones are worth applying to. If you don't want to have to take the time to do it yourself, then you just ask ChatGPT for help, right? Love to know what you guys think about that. If you've ever done anything like that before, where you've spent the time actually determining if the job is a ghost job or not. So here is what you can screenshot right now on the screen if you're going to use AI as your assistant. So that way you know what to look for and you know your prompts, all right? And then I want to ask a few more questions on, the legal reality. Is this a legal strategy for companies to be doing this, right? What level of transparency do we actually require of these businesses? It's kind of interesting. There's a lot of noise online right now claiming that ghost jobs are illegal. And I want to give you the exact verified picture of where the law stands as of today. So the reality is much more complicated than the headlines suggest, truly. So, for example, New York actually has the most advanced transparency legislation in the country right now. There is a Senate bill, S8877, that would require employers with 100 or more employees to explicitly disclose in every single job posting whether it is a current vacancy or a future vacancy or just pipeline collection. As of August, I think it passed in the Senate, but it still needs to go through a few more steps before it's an active law. Similarly, in California, they introduced an Assembly Bill 1251 that would apply a similar transparency requirement. And it's in committee. It has not yet been passed or signed. And of course, these are some of the more liberal states that support employees a little bit more aggressively than supporting employers. They're more likely to advocate for the workforce. So they are leading the charge on this effort. Pennsylvania and New Jersey have also introduced similar bills that are in the early legislative states. So, would we be able to say that at the federal level in the United States, there's an overarching law that is making ghost jobs illegal, or that, it demands transparency? No, that is not yet the case, but at least lawmakers are beginning to look at this. The government just has not yet to solve this problem for us. So, fortunately, we're able to work on this problem ourselves at this time, okay? This is why we're coming up with a verification system. So before we actually apply to anything, we have a process that we can go through. So first is the 2-minute triage. Before you open your resume, spend 2 minutes deciding whether a job deserves deeper investigation, run the signal checks that we just went over, or use the AI evidence assistant, and then assign the posting a color code. So green is evidence suggests the opportunity is actively managed and it's worth your time to proceed. Yellow is that the evidence or the signals are mixed and you might want to verify by reaching out to the job or the employer before you invest significant time on applying for that job. Red would be that there's multiple independent red flags, so you do not want to spend an hour tailoring the application until you verify the role. And no color is going to guarantee the truth, but the purpose here is just to allocate your time intelligently and intentionally, right? So the next step is the heartbeat check. So for yellow or red postings, just take the time to send one message. So find a recruiter or a hiring contact, or if you're applying on Indeed, it's usually pretty easy to reach out this way. So you can send a message that sounds like, hi, I came across this role and I'm genuinely interested. Could you confirm whether the job is currently open or not? So I have a little example here what that can look like. So you can screenshot that. You also might consider the backdoor strategy. So if the signals are bad, but you genuinely want the role, then connect with someone who is close to the team. So not just HR, but an actual team member. Or maybe you can leverage your local community connections and let them know in a brief, respectful way that you're exploring opportunities in that specific field and you notice the company was hiring for the role that you're looking for and you would just love to connect if they're open to it. And the purpose is human context. Are they genuinely interviewing? What is the real timeline? Even if the job board posting is a stale relic, the employees are real and you can have that one-on-one conversation. That's actually how I got a little part-time job somewhere recently. Is I was actually just going into the location and receiving services and chatting with the front desk, and they ended up letting me know that they didn't have any quality help on the weekends, and if somebody was looking for weekend hours, they would be happy to have that help. And I was like, you know what, maybe I could actually do that. I have weekends open right now. I could pick up a few extra hours. So I got my foot in the door that way. And then before you know it, they're like, oh, and you're a training expert, like why don't you help me with this and this and this? And now I manage a whole team of people, and it's not the job that I walked in expecting to have, but that's where leveraging those human connections really worked in my favor. So it definitely helps. The old strategies back in the day were to actually go door to door, walk into a location, bring your resume, have a conversation with the people working there on if they're hiring and what they're looking for. And I don't know, as an employer, I actually tend to support that. I actually love meeting nice people, and if I were to meet you that way and we had a great conversation, a great connection, then I'd be much more likely to bring you on the team rather than the 50 other people that are faceless applicants pressing quick apply on Indeed. The person who takes the time to reach out and show initiative and connect with me on a human level, maybe I would actually make space on my team for that person just because they showed initiative, even if I wasn't actively hiring today. So there are some other ways you can go about it, but that human connection will also just help you verify if they're even hiring right now and it's worth taking the time to apply to that role that you saw that was reposted 16 days ago, right? Now, if you're still here, I just want to have a few moments set aside for answering any questions that you might have. I would love to hear what your takeaway is, if you're going to try this before you spend time applying to your next position, if you're going to search a little bit deeper to determine if that job is a ghost job or if it's fresh and valid and actively seeking someone to fill the role. If you have any questions, you can either comment in the chat or you can comment on the replay. And we also actually have a Discord. So maybe you're a little shy and you don't want to comment directly on the video, but you wouldn't mind connecting with me one-on-one to get some advice on, how to find the job that's a right fit for you or how to update your resume. I would absolutely love to have that conversation. So I'd love to invite you to our group Discord. Oh, that's a great question. So what do I think about the future of AI in the job market? I think that at this point in time, it is an unavoidable reality. I think that people who are adamantly against AI are a little naive and they're going to be left behind because whether we like it or not, it is advancing human capacity and allowing us to maximize our time and work more efficiently. And when it comes to businesses making business decisions, they're going to consider efficiency and their bottom line. So, I don't think AI itself might not replace every single human individual. We're still going to value human creativity and problem solving and things like that and hands-on practical skills. But if you are someone that has those skills and intelligence and abilities and you can use AI to optimize your time and work smarter, not harder, then you will definitely replace somebody who is at the same level as you but does not utilize AI. So I think that it's going to play a role not only in the jobs themselves, but also how we apply to jobs, how we look for employees. We've talked a lot in these conversations about how AI is now a part of the application process and built in for like 80 to 99% of companies at this point. So it's here, and unless some major legislation happens, which is probably being lobbied for and against, and unlikely to go away, in my opinion. So I think it's time to figure out how we can use it effectively and integrate it as part of our day-to-day lives and as part of our jobs if we can help it. I know that there's also a lot of different feelings on the environmental impact of AI, and I'm glad people are having those conversations and considering those things. So, we need to have that discourse as well so that we can use the tool safely. But like I said, I think it's going to be here to stay either way. So it's better just to figure out how you can incorporate it and use it to get ahead. And so that way you're not the one that's left behind. That's a great question. Hope that's okay. I took like 3 minutes to answer you. um, all right, so I hope that this was interesting for you guys to look through because there are some job postings out there that you can see right away because of their lack of specificity or recency that they are probably fake, not legitimate quality jobs. Those typically stand out right away. But a lot of the things that we talked about today are the ones that can be a little sneaky and slip through the cracks. And so, sometimes there's the surface logic of sending massive volumes of generic applications and, not worry about it. I'm just going to quick apply to every single job, no matter if it's a ghost job or a recent job or not. I do still think it's worth taking the time to use these strategies to guide your effort, and quality absolutely outperforms volume. One targeted application to a verified green flag posting is worth much more than 20 unverified generic applications. So, this 2-minute process will protect your time and hopefully increase the likelihood that you actually get the job that you're looking for. So, just to be honest, the frustration that you feel when you send out dozens of applications and hear nothing back is completely understandable, and it's real and it's relatable. The market contains real jobs and stale postings and pipeline listings and uncertain opportunities and systems that don't always communicate clearly. So, it's probably just the fact of the matter that you might apply to 20 jobs and only hear back from one. So that's why I'm trying to help you process that reality and not try to determine the secret intentions of every employer, but just to spend your effort intelligently. Find that one job that really rings true to your soul and feels right and feels real and feels worth it, and spend the time crafting your application to effectively show your skill set and your personality and the things that make you special and unique. The biggest problem isn't that every job posting it's or is fake, or a ghost job. It's just that you are forced to treat every posting as if it were equally real, while their signals are weak and inconsistent. So from now on, don't treat the apply now button as proof that job is actively hiring, but treat it as an invitation to verify that job. And if you've made it to the end, you are the real MVP, and I appreciate your support and your focused intention. And I hope that it is worthwhile for you and that you're all able to have the career and the job of your dreams. So feel free to subscribe and like and stick around, and we'll be back next week to continue this conversation. Thank you, everybody. Bye.